You have had manifestos read and they took a long time. I want to start with the summary of basically what I'll be telling you. You have heard that we are calling this the Badilisha Manifesto Change. Yes, we are giving it other names, the manifesto that will give Kenyans hope, because there is hope for Kenyans. The manifesto that will bring into being the founding vision and dream of our founding fathers, a dream of justice, uhaki, unity, umoja, peace, undugu, liberty, usawa, plenty, utajiri. And all these are joined together at the hip by integrity, uwazi. That's what we are bringing to you this afternoon. We are this afternoon bringing to you a manifesto by which we want, and we shall be saying to you that our presidency, 10 years down the line, we would want to be remembered as the presidency that slayed the dragon of corruption, wastage, mismanagement, and the woofing from the word woof we have found in this nation for the last 59 years. We read in scripture that leadership is shepherding. It is written of a great king known as King David in Psalm 78 and verse 72. And David shepherded Israel as its leader according to the integrity of heart and the skillfulness of his hands. He shepherded. Naye Daudi akailisha ama akaichunga nchi ya Israeli kwa uadilifu wa moyo na kwa ustadi wa mikono yake. We are in this race because for us in Agano and for me and my running mate, we have lacked shepherdhood for the last 59 years in our nation. We are in this race because about 59 years back in the early 60s, Kenya was in the Commonwealth or at the level with some other nations. And I'll mention nations we keep mentioning: Singapore, South Korea. They were not even better than us. We used to lend them money. But the only difference is that the leaders who took over and subsequent leaders chose the path of shepherding, kulisha, kuchunga, kugawia, uhaki, their nations. It was nothing else. As my father would have said when any of us came, my biological father number one, when any of us came number 2 or 3, they didn't come number 1, he would ask, he wasn't used to commending, that was that generation, he would ask, na yule alikuwa nambari moja, kwani alikuwa na vichwa viwili ama namna gani? The people of Singapore, the leaders who took over, and the leaders who took over South Korea, I would say like my father said, did not have 2 heads. They did not have 2 brains. They made decisions, and decisions that they were not going to eat the food of the sheep. They were not going to steal the food of the poor, the money of the poor, KEMSA, the money of the sick, the money of unemployed youth, national youth. And they were not going kukula nyasi ya kondoo. But they were going to look to preserve and look and take them to green pastures. For 59 years, we have known nothing else but woofing. And that's why, while Singapore and South Korea went this way, Kenya, that's a simple choice. Because consequently, the money that would have used for development, which we shall be submitting to you, and we are just taking the last 20 years, the last 5, 10, 15, 20. In our estimate as Agano Party, we have our own workings, which we have worked, and we will ask others to challenge us. We know the scarcity of truth in this nation has been unmanageable. We figured out that in the last 20 years, including the last 5 and the last 10, we have lost in this Kenya. It's somewhere, it's not completely lost. Not less than 60 trillion Kenya shillings. And we'll tell you how. As we say, Kenyans, this is the day that the Lord has made, and we shall be glad and rejoice in it. And as we say, God is good, and all the time, and that is, I welcome you to my Manifesto launch with my running mate, so on behalf of Agano Party. We plead with you and apologize, just a little. We really don't need to apologize. We don't feel apologetic about it. That we were not able to take you to Bomas, or Kasarani Stadium, or KICC. The truth is, we couldn't afford it. But we brought you to where we can afford it. The other truth is, we are not state-sponsored. And we are also not using taxpayers' funds. Nor are we being sponsored by interest groups that want to mess the lives of our youth, instead of thinking of how we first should rehabilitate them. On 12th December 1963, we, the nation of Kenya, gained our independence from colonialists. This is 59 years. Like any other country which obtained its independence then and now, our founding fathers and mothers had great dreams and visions for this country. That Kenya would be a nation of justice, peace, plenty, unity, and liberty. And integrity would tie them all. These English words translate into Kiswahili as uhaki, umoja, undugu, usawa, utajiri, na ukafungwa, yale maneno yakafungwa na neno uwazi ama ukweli. But alas, 59 years after independence, this Kenyan dream remains but a phantom, a hollow dream, a mirage. Let me explain, Kenyans, so that you get it. 59 years after independence, and of independence, we have the following experiences. Very high costs of living, such as we have never experienced before in a nation, or for a nation that has been 59 years old. You can't get it in the nations I've named and others. Such high prices of essential foodstuffs in difficult economic times as we are going through. Such high level of unemployment, and last but not least, such a high external debt, not to mention our internal debt. This state of affairs has led to such hopelessness among its Kenyans, anger, depression, ill health, insecurity, deaths, and such oppression. Cries and sorrows as were experienced by the children of Israel when in captivity in Egypt, or Misri as it then was, as recorded in the biblical book of Exodus chapter 3. How did we get here, and where is here? By own estimates, as presidential candidate and through our party, this is what we think, not what they have been telling us, but we start from where they have been telling us. That in the last 5 years, we Kenyans have lost from corruption, both the hard and soft. We are distinguishing the hard and soft corruption, about Kenya shillings 10 trillion. Our rate of calculation has been 5 billion per day, not 2 billion. That's their figures. Those are the figures that His Excellency the President was told by the people who have been stealing. So take it, start from the premise he was not told the truth. That also must have been corruption that is just within government. We were not told about the other corruptions and the soft corruption. This in 10 years translates to 20 trillion. About, let me use the word about. And even if it's not 10, 20 trillion, you and I don't have to go far to guess for a nation like this that we could have lost as much as that money. This is to corruption. I'm talking about the daily corruption. For us, we are using a rate of 5 billion. You can even use 3, and even if you use 2 trillion, you still find that in the last 10 years, we've lost about 10 trillion. That is payment, one day, pap, of the external or the Chinese debt, one day. One day, lost in one day. 10 trillion, take even their 2 billion. And we are told it's because of that external debt that UNGA is now 200 Kenya shillings. But I'm saying to you that if Kenya was being shepherded by our leaderships, the past, and the ones before, we wouldn't be there. We wouldn't be having that debt. We have also been told when that debt, if it were not for that debt, prices would even be lower. But we are giving you the reasons. Nobody else has been giving you the reasons. If you consider that the same leaders that are spearheading and leading and alleged to be leading in this competition, whether they are doing so from the front or the middle or the back room, are the same leaders that have been in our government for the last 20 years. We in Agano and with our researchers and our estimations, we also estimate that even in the government before this regime, we could have lost as much money as the same. So one could argue it's speculation, but this is a very wealthy nation. We've got oil, we've got minerals, titanium and others. They speak glowingly about us. We've got potential, we've had it. When they sit at the United Nations, they think of nations in Africa, they think about Kenya. I'm talking to you something close to pocket change. Arguing that even in the regime before this one, we could have lost as much as that. I'm not far off the mark. If you agree with me for a moment, or you speculate with me, then if it's 20 trillion during this regime, then in the last one, it was 20 regime. And I'll argue my case some more. So that if in the 2 regimes, you agree with me that we are dealing with 2020, that's about 40. What as a nation could we not have done with that? Let's even give the benefit of doubt and say the last 2 regimes, 20 trillion. What could we have not done? I'll tell you what they have said in the international circles about that. Hang on. We'll tell you how we arrived at these estimates. I've mentioned this. How else did we get here? Kenyans and Kenyans' wealth has been stashed abroad, which is another big elephant in the room. In or about 2017-2018, it was widely reported by reputable international groups and organizations that wealth Kenyans were hiding abroad, illegally acquired, was more than Kenya shillings 15 trillion. Assuming that's correct, this is another almost twice the amount of the Chinese loan. In 2017-2018 budget statement, the then Treasury Secretary, Henry Rotich, gave Kenyans amnesty to return that money. To date, we have never been told whether that money was ever returned. If in 2017 and 2018 it was 15 trillion, forget what else you get in the social media. You can manipulate, that space is manipulatable, and by big governments. We argue that 5 years from 2017, if it's 15 trillion, right now we could be talking about 20 trillion. You can even have the figures I'm giving you, and imagine where we would be as a nation. You know, secrets and absence of uwezi and ukweli has been the manner and method of our leaderships. If you take my 20 million, 20 trillion, stashed abroad, 20 trillion, in this regime, 20 trillion in the other, what are you dealing with? You can even have it to 30. Remember also the last 10, 20 years are the years when our competitors have been in power, are also the years we've had such mega scandals. And just to to refresh our memories, KEMSA, National Youth Service, SGR, Goldenberg, Euroboard, Triton, Symmetry, Anglo Racing, Afia House, Chicken Gate, Fighter Jet, NCPD, Grad Regency, Takwell Station, Navy Ship, Mahindra, Maze, Japan Scandal, Kidero, Helicopter Servicing Contra, Hustlers Jet, Ruaraka Land, Karen Land, Laptop Tender, and the list goes on. Kenyans, we in Agano are saying that our problem, we are where we are because of grand corruption, grand wastage, grand mismanagement. And Kenyans, some are our competitors and they want to be recycled back, stashing money which first of all is illegally obtained. But also, even if part of it may not be, if it were here in Kenya and they really love their country, we would not be in the economic mess that we are in. Many years ago, a young man went out into a battlefield, and found the warriors of his nation cowering at the sight and sound of a giant enemy who had been terrorizing them for days. Although he had been sent on a different mission, the young man dared to ask why there was no action on the battlefield. When he learned of his army's predicament, he went out on a limb with no prior military training, with no soldier's armor, and with no fear. He confronted the giant, armed only with a slingshot and a stone. My namesake dared the Philistine. He promised that he would kill the Philistine and feed his flesh to the birds, and with the first stone from his artillery of 5, my namesake felled the giant. I am saying to Kenyans that my candidature and my manifesto, and our manifesto with my running mate, is a corruption fighting and a return our money candidature into our economy so that we can do catch up. Angalau, we can at least try to catch a little with the others.